Blessings, beloveds. Welcome back, Anastasia, Cosmic Astrologer. Just want to talk about Mercury, which will actually go retrograde pretty soon. I'll show you the dates of that. I'll bring up the chart in a minute. But today, and actually leading up to today, really for quite a few days now, Mercury in Capricorn has pretty much reached its conjunction to Pluto. I had mentioned this in a post, but I just want to go into it a little bit more deeply and just give some considerations of what to kind of expect or think about from your own perspective relative to Mercury things, Pluto things, and also Venus, because the alignment actually is a triple conjunction which occurs between Mercury, Venus, and Pluto. And of course, Venus is retrograde at this time, and Mercury will also go retrograde actually at about 10 degrees of Aquarius, and we'll actually go back into Capricorn. So it'll actually pass over Pluto 3 times. That's a very important thing to consider, because we're not talking about Mercury Pluto conjunction then just for a couple of days. We're talking about a few weeks where Mercury, who's the messenger, the god of the mind, you could say, of messages from the divine, from our higher self, from the soul, Pluto, is actually, hanging around with Pluto for quite some time. So there's an invitation, really, for a process of deep mental reflection, particularly around Venusian things as well, because Venus is retrograde. And so you can't really separate them, whilst they are all separate bodies doing their own thing within their own cycle. They're all hanging around together in the same sign of Capricorn. And we also have the new moon in Capricorn, which I spoke about just a couple of days ago. So I guess, just a couple of personal reflections. I've just noticed, just even my own interactions with certain individuals, Mercury Pluto aspects are very profound, very powerful aspects, because they have the ability to give the person a very deep probing mind, the investigative mind, right? The investigator, the one who digs very deeply and gets to the bottom of things. Pluto gets to the bottom of everything, right? So even I've noticed, just even casual kind of supposed to be light-hearted type of conversations I've had with people that I know in my own life, the quality of the engagement, the sharing, the conversations on both sides has been very Pluto based. I was speaking to an individual yesterday. I won't bother naming gender or names, of course, because it's a private, confidential thing. But just to give an example, I was talking to this person, and this person was just confiding in me, Pluto, telling me some secretive kind of material about their relationship, Venus, and things that are very important to this person, especially given that they are pretty much getting ready to get married, right? So this person was disclosing certain things to me that were very private and had that real Pluto, Mercury, Venus edge to it. Mercury, because it was the communication of something that was so private for this individual and their life. And Venus, because it's about a relationship and love and things of that nature. So it was just very, very interesting. And there's been another conversation that I had with another individual. This individual has a young adult child, as it were, who, engaged in a conversation that again was very Pluto Mercury. There's different ways though that it's going to come out. So in that particular instance, it was very much a cutting, kind of dark, kind of intense Pluto Mercury sort of sting, if you like. It was really it was dialogue that wasn't particularly very pleasant, and that stirred up a lot of things in the relationship of those two individuals, and I was kind of there caught in the center of it. So it was a pretty awkward situation to be in, because it was during a particular popular holiday that we just had a few days ago. That's just another example. I had another friend who confided in me about, again, a similar sort of situation with, a friend that did a real Pluto Scorpio type thing where they cut them off, and just I'm not going into the specifics because it's not necessary. I just want to draw some examples of real life things that have been happening to me literally just in the last week, few days, etc. And it's just been very interesting to be a part of that and to observe that with the knowledge of, yeah, there's a Mercury Pluto Venus triple conjunction going on at the moment, and it is stirring up a lot of material. And it is in Capricorn right now. Capricorn is a feminine sign. The feminine qualities and the planets, if you like, that are considered nocturnal, which is the moon and Venus, nocturnal and feminine, very similar, because the invitation is always from within. There is a process, a reflection, investigation and inquiry and asking, whatever it is, from a very sort of deep inner kind of place and space. And think about the feminine quality the feminine principle and quality actually does connect. It connects things, it connects people, it connects situations. That's just the nature of the feminine energy, if you like. Whereas masculine, pushes out, takes action, and kind of propels itself forward and kind of gets on with things, right? And that reminds me, actually, you can think about that principle even from the point of view of the evening star and the morning star. I was reading a brilliant article this morning, and it just reminded me, for instance, when you are a morning star, which is also known as the Lucifer, which just means light, right? The morning star people, they're going to act, much more from an external level relative to their feelings, right? And their values, and how they feel about how they are relating, how they are sharing. There's an instant kind of activation about their emotional sort of frame and nature that just comes out sort of very in a very fiery way, if you like, because it's a morning star, so it's got that yang sort of masculine tone to it, right? And then the evening stars, that complete opposite to that, they have really intense feelings as well. Both have really intense feelings, but the evening star tends to be more contemplative, right? More reserved, and takes more of an inner sort of stance and position about how they feel about things. And so something will happen, and they will process that on a mental level, and then the feelings connected to that will come after. So their emotional response or reaction comes after the actual event. Whereas with the morning star, which is the yang masculine, externalized sort of action, sort of position of Venus, if you like, what happens is a situation will occur, and there'll be an immediate emotional reaction and response to the situation, and the thought will come later. So it's just very interesting to think about these principles, even when you're looking at, certainly when you're looking at your own Venus star point, whether you're a morning star or an evening star, when you're looking at any planet and the sign that it's in, the planet itself, whether it's a diurnal planet or a nocturnal planet, when you're looking at the archetype itself, is it a feminine or a masculine? These finer sort of details are really, really important to help you get to a deeper sort of place with the meaning, the characteristics and the significators of each planet in each sign. And I was actually reminded of a lot of this stuff just in the last few days. And then it's interesting, because with this Mercury Pluto conjunction, I've been deeply processing and reflecting on a lot of things around me in my life, and just thinking about the things that I really want to change actually for 2022. The priorities that I have around my time, um, what I put my energy into, things of that nature. So I've been thinking a lot about that, which is very much Venus retrograde, and it's been quite an intense sort of process. And the last couple of days, we've had the moon in Scorpio, and so that's the last sort of the last lunation energy, if you like, for the year of 2021. Moon in Scorpio before we have a new moon in Capricorn. So there's been quite an intense um, frequency in the air, and it's bringing up a lot of, I think, a lot of, you know, material that is not necessarily lightweight. It's quite heavy because we've got Pluto right there next to the Mercury. And so many, many years ago, I studied medieval traditional astrology, and I was reflecting on that. And today I saw a post from a lovely young astrologer who's from Australia as well. Don't know his actual name, but anyway, he's on Instagram, and he showed a book that he'd been reading, and I thought, wow, I've got that book. I'd forgotten all about that book, and what it was actually was this book here, Ptolemy's Tetrabiblos, which Tetrabiblos is a Greek word, which just means four books, right? Tetra is a Greek word, biblos is a Greek word meaning books. Tetra comes from the number four. And so this is just saying that there are, four books that have been translated, right, through Ptolemy's work. And I've got quite a few of them. I've even got this one here. So, tools and techniques of the medieval astrologers, Robert Solar. Just one more that I want to show, Liber Hermetis. Now, these texts are really, really ancient traditional astrological material and wisdom, right? And I've pulled them out because I want to revisit them. Many, many years ago when I was studying medieval astrology, I had to read those books because I actually did a formal course where I had to write assignments and, et cetera, et cetera. So it was a very academic sort of technical kind of course, if you like, relative to understanding the old sort of texts and scriptures around traditional medieval astrology. And there's a lot of value, a lot of value in the old traditional understanding of astrology. I think it's probably even really important just to get that as your fundamental base, and then moving forward, you can expand and sort of become more eclectic and work with different sort of different teachings, if you like, which is what I've done. I started in traditional astrology, worked and practiced like that for a very long time, and subsequently took a journey in evolutionary astrology, in esoteric astrology. And so that's just something that I've been deeply reflecting on the last few days, which is very much Mercury in Capricorn conjunct Pluto, right? Because what have I gone to? I've gone to old traditional teachings, which is Capricorn, old traditional teachings, and I've dug that up, Pluto, and I've brought it back into my immediate sort of space, if you like, because I want to pick them up and just kind of read, a page here and a page there, just to refresh my memory on certain principles that I think are really important to share and discuss, right? So that's been my Mercury, Pluto, Venus sort of triple conjunction in the past few days, if you like. And in addition, some of the personal examples I gave of people confiding certain things in me, and also being present in some uncomfortable Pluto Mercury type of discussions that had nothing to do with me. I just happened to be in the space, and I was kind of hooked into the center of two people's dilemmas and conflicts, and that's never comfortable, but I can be pretty diplomatic in those sort of situations. And So that's kind of what I've been thinking about with these energies at the moment. Let me just bring up a chart. I just want to show you guys. So that's 12th of February. So what that is showing you there is Pluto coming back to Mercury again. But let's just go back to today's date. So there it is there. You can see Pluto and Mercury exactly together, right? And Venus is right there as well. And so these are the, very intense energies for these last days of 2021. And there's the moon in Scorpio. So, that's, that's really interesting. And of course, the moon is sextiling these planets. So that's good. But again, Scorpio, feminine, an inner, deep reflective sign and archetype that, brings up the most uncomfortable material for us, actually. Things that we've been sitting on for a long time, things that we don't like to disclose, or things that we are uncomfortable about even sort of facing within our own selves. But because of this Mercury-Pluto aspect at the moment with Venus, we are definitely going into a really purposeful, thought out kind of process of, where am I at this point in, the end of 2021 with everything that's happened in my life. What can I actually take away from, 2021 from a much deeper level of understanding, right? And it's not so much about necessarily, I mean, it can be engaging with people and having, different types of conversations, and of course that's going to happen, but I'd encourage you to think about it more just from a private sort of space within your own self, because Mercury is as I often say, is the one planet that had access to all worlds, right? So he's the messenger of the gods. Again, he was one of the most, he's such an intelligent god. Jupiter didn't punish him when he stole and did some naughty things back in the day, because Jupiter was Zeus, the god of, well, all the gods were the gods of Olympus, but Zeus was the god, so to speak, and he didn't punish Mercury. So because Mercury is such a fast moving body, certainly the moon is first, and the sun and Mercury are there as the next sort of fastest moving bodies. And we kind of we take it for granted, I think, sometimes, just how rich Mercury is, in terms of what it can offer us with our own left linear brain, because it is left linear brain. But there is the whole level of Mercury, which is the deep sort of Hermetic, Hermes, the deep sort of alchemical Hermetic Egyptian teachings of Thoth, for instance. So Mercury has a lot to offer. Mercury is the planet that's going to enable you to pick up a book and read it, to communicate, to explain yourself, to teach, to, all those things, everything to do with the written and spoken word has got to do with Mercury in your chart. And now think about it, our life on every single level requires communication, doesn't it? So it's a very important planet that we sometimes just forget just how important it is. So because it is aligning with Pluto, and because it's going to go retrograde in Aquarius, and I'll just show you actually, where are my bits and pieces? There they are. So I just want to show you the movement of this, right? So let's just animate this chart and just skip over, day at a time. So if we just go back, actually, frankly speak, I allow really wide orbs, especially for an approaching or applying aspect, particularly for an applying aspect. I allow quite a wide orb. So, I'd even take it back to, let's just say around about here, 25th of December, Christmas Day. Okay, And that's when I had that situation with two individuals where it was a mother and a child, and there was a really intense Mercury Pluto situation that arose that just was very unpleasant. And so there it was. And I did say just before Christmas Day, I said that Christmas Day is not going to be a lightweight sort of energy. It's going to be pretty heavy and intense. And it was for me. So let me know what your experiences were if you had some situation that occurred on that level where there was a conversation, a sharing that took place that had a real Pluto Mercury edge to it, which wasn't necessarily comfortable, but it might have actually also enabled you to see something that was hidden before, which is actually what happened to me. I was able to see a side to this particular relationship that was hidden from me because I only heard one side previously. And so there I had this X-ray sort of vision, if you like, with Pluto's presence there. And I just got to see a whole bunch of things that I otherwise wouldn't have. So moving forward, which is to, let's say, the 30th of December, which is the date in the Southern Hemisphere at the moment. For you guys, it'll be the 29th. Perhaps it'll be the 30th when you watch this, right? So there's the exact conjunction. And of course, Venus is right there with them. Mercury, Venus, and I've said this before because we do need to, you can think about this as a triple conjunction, and then you can also think about it as a Mercury, Venus conjunction, and of course, a Pluto Venus conjunction, right? So you can look at that in sort of as you know, a couple of sort of conjunctions, or you can and also group them up together, which is what's happening. So it's a triple conjunction. But Mercury Venus can be, in old traditional astrology, there's a lot to this, but it can be really devious type thinking. Okay, because Venus is all about pleasure, right? She's connected to a lot of other different things. And then if you're talking about the Venus star point, then we're bringing in a whole other dimension. If you're talking about Venus from an evolutionary perspective, that's a whole other dimension as well. But just in terms of traditional astrology, Venus corresponds to, you know, love, relationships, money, values, etc., right? Just very simply put. And it is also the planet that corresponds to the sensual delights and pleasures of life, right? So when you've got Mercury, Venus there can be, you know, a very deliberate, manipulative intention to your motives are driven from what you actually want to experience relative to your own sort of pleasures and delights, you know. So it just can be being dishonest in in, you know, your communications with your partner or someone you're attracted to in order to get what you want out of the situation, kind of thing. That's just one example, but it is an important thing to kind of notice, because if you're in a situation, you know, at the moment, just bear in mind this Mercury Venus is some ulterior sort of motives that can be coming up there. That's one example. As we proceed forward, what you'll see is that Mercury, you know, gets into Aquarius, okay, around about the, let's say, you know, 2nd or 3rd of January. And by the way, Mercury goes retrograde 4 times in 2022. Now in 2021, it only went retrograde 3 times. In 2022, the last retrograde that it picks up is literally towards the end of 2022, and it actually picks it up in Capricorn, which is really interesting because we have Mercury going retrograde in Aquarius here early in January, and it's going to go back into Capricorn. So this retrograde Mercury in the month of January, which is going through the signs of Aquarius and Capricorn, there'll be some kind of repeat of this pattern right at the end of 2022. And that's going to be a very important time in terms of all Mercury things, which is all your communications, your written and spoken words and documents, your learning, your teaching, your contracts, your ideas, your thinking, your sort of plans around anything that you're planning to do. Like when you write things in your calendar, that's a Mercury type of thing. It's also connected to, as I said, contracts, deals, things that you kind of make a pact on, all that sort of stuff. You could be making it with yourself or with others, it doesn't really matter. It can be either or both. But whatever you are sort of reflecting on and contemplating at this time when Mercury goes retrograde, there's going to be a final close and completion with that right at the end of 2022. So just important to keep that in mind. So I'll show you where Mercury goes retrograde, which is basically just here there it is, stationary, okay, on the 14th of January. So by the 15th, it's well and truly stationary, like completely dead stopped, and there it is, retrograde by the 16th of January. Now these dates are based on in the southern hemisphere, so it'll take it a day back in terms of dates for you if you're in the northern hemisphere. So interesting, hey, because he goes retrograde, she, because Mercury is very I like to say androgynous, actually, because even from the point of view of, if you go back into old traditional astrology, certain planets are diurnal and certain planets are nocturnal, right? And they're either nocturnal or they are either diurnal. For instance, the sun is diurnal, the moon is nocturnal, Venus is actually nocturnal, Jupiter is diurnal. The Mercury, however, can be both diurnal and nocturnal, right? And it's a little bit complex to explain why that is, but that is the case. So Mercury has this kind of androgynous sort of energy to it, if you like, and it can be both male and female, right? So here it is picking up a conjunction to Saturn when he goes retrograde. I think that's hugely significant, particularly because Saturn, of course, is the ruler to Capricorn. Mercury is going to go back into Capricorn. And like I said, at the end of the year, it's going to pick up its last retrograde in the sign of Capricorn. So a very important emphasis on Saturn, Mercury, Capricorn, Aquarius, right? And whilst in traditional astrology, Saturn is the ruler of both Capricorn and Aquarius, in other lenses of astrology, particularly in evolutionary astrology, Aquarius corresponds to being connected to Uranus, right? That is its ruler. So it is interesting, though, that Mercury does rule both Capricorn and Aquarius, and you do see, and have a look at this yourself and have a think about it if you haven't. You'll see a Capricorn person and you'll see an Aquarius person, and in traditional astrology, they are both ruled by Saturn. And you might see some Aquarians that are very, they are more Saturn type of Aquarians, and then you'll see some Aquarians that are very Uranus type of Aquarians, right? They are both ruled by Saturn, though, so it's important to always remember that. And so if you see an Aquarian that seems very Saturnian, that's basically why, because their ruling planet is Saturn, right? And Saturn corresponds to 80% of the population relative to a consensus reality state. So you're going to see a lot of Aquarians who have more of a Saturn type of energy about them, right? Anyway, so Mercury's picking up the conjunction to Saturn. Let's just step forward. So it's a close enough conjunction. It's only 3 degrees apart. So as we continue forward, Mercury, as you can see, goes right back into Capricorn by the 26th of January. So here he is moving back again to catch up to Pluto, right? Which is where he was on the 30th of December, right? Relative to the date we're looking at on the screen. So there it is there, an exact conjunction again, 30th of January. Now Mercury is still moving retrograde. Okay, where is it? He stops there to change direction and go direct again, right? So because he's doing that at that particular degree, watch this as we step forward. Mercury now, having changed directions, is going to pass over Pluto again, right? Which is really very profound, actually. So by the, say, 10th, 11th of February, 10th, 11th, 12th of February, there's Mercury passing over Pluto again, which is basically the same thing that Venus is doing in her retrograde cycle. And interesting because Mercury and Venus are both, very personal planets, obviously. They're both having a retrograde journey with Pluto in the sign of Capricorn virtually at the same time. So there's something very important about these Mercury, Venus both going retrograde at virtually the same time. Not really the same time, but they're overlapping, right? And they are both doing it with the planet Pluto, all right? And so Pluto, remember, again, Pluto is always about having to have to die to something, having to have to let go of something. A transformational journey or process or invitation into the world of Pluto does require, letting something shed, purging something. In this case, because we're talking about Mercury and Venus, it's got to do with Mercury, Venus aspects of life. Now, Mercury, don't forget, also corresponds to siblings. So you may even find that there's something really intense and significant going on with a sibling. Now, that could be just them in their own life, or that could be you with them. Always remember that Mercury corresponds to siblings. Of course, with the Venus retrograde, although she's direct here, again with Pluto, it is a very deep reevaluation of all your friendships and all your relationships, and perhaps becoming more realistic about what you actually really value about this person or that relationship, or what, why are you in this friendship, why are you in this relationship. It's a deep process of going into all of this and delving deep and sorting through it and asking questions, and it can bring up sort of some obsessive type of thinking as well. Mercury, Pluto, certainly one aspect of that is obsessive thoughts, which can lead to obsessive compulsive behavior as well, obviously, right? So there can be a really intense obsessive thought process that's going on. Now that can be unhealthy or healthy. It depends on the situation, the thoughts that are going on, the outcome, etc., right? But if you are really feeling quite mentally sort of intense about something at the moment and obsessing over a particular thought, this would be why, because of Mercury, Pluto. And Mercury passes over Pluto 3 times, as did Venus, or as will Venus over the next couple of months, right? So I think it's just really important material to really integrate, on a conscious level, by really looking at your life, looking at everything about your life, everything you think about, everything you love and value. It is a morning star, so there is an invitation to taking acting on things, and what is the purpose of acting on things here? Well, it's actually acting on things in your life that you really love and appreciate and value, and sorting through that in order to create a reality, a structure of a reality that is in a much truer alignment with your soul, right? Pluto. And Capricorn is the aspect of that that corresponds to let's just say a reality. Now we all have a different perspective of reality, but Capricorn and Saturn corresponds to the consensus reality. And wherever we fit in that, within that, or don't is kind of irrelevant. That's a personal sort of journey, right? But whatever reality you have, this is the time to really reflect on what reality you are projecting moving forward. And I've touched on this and talked about it in the new moon video that I did for the new moon in Capricorn, which comes up on the 2nd and 3rd of January, right? But it's even bigger than just the new moon in Capricorn, because we've got Mercury in Capricorn passing over Pluto 3 times. Venus in Capricorn is the Venus morning star passing over Pluto 3 times. So there, there is a very significant invitation to go much deeper with the elements of life for you that correspond to Mercury and Venus, which is everything you think about, everything you speak about, everything you are learning, and everything you love, or everyone you love. And just ultimately what values really match with the reality that you wish to create moving forward into the year of 2022. Because our values do change, they evolve as well, just as we evolve. Nothing remains the same. There are, a lot of souls that appear to be on a particular path and don't veer too much off that. But how do we know, really? We don't know what's going on in someone's backyard. We have our own sort of perspective or take on things, but we never truly know what's going on in someone's backyard. We can't know. We're not that person, right? So never assume anything, I say, about anyone or anything. Okay, so Mercury moves ahead here, obviously. So let's go back again. Yeah, so by the 15th of February, Mercury's back into Aquarius, right? So it's quite a long journey of Mercury in Aquarius, basically around about 2 months because of this retrograde period. So I guess we could also say that because Mercury in Capricorn forms a conjunction to Pluto and passes over it 3 times, and so there's some very deep mental transformations that we are contemplating on. And that could also be, on the one hand, as I said, it's, well, what sort of reality do you envision for yourself moving forward? That is also going to be connected to what aspects of reality, your reality, have a very conditioned core or frame to them, right? So breaking conditions, in other words. And if anything is going to break something down and get to the core and the bottom of it, it's going to be Pluto. So Pluto here can assist us from our, left brain, Mercury mind, can assist us in breaking down even, a lot of conditioned type of thoughts that we may have from childhood, for instance. It is an invitation, and it is a profound invitation because of the retrograde and because Mercury passes over Pluto 3 times. So, don't take it for granted. This is a wonderful opportunity to really break some things down that have some pretty dense kind of walls. Saturn rules walls, and it rules density. The density of reality is ruled by Saturn, right? So Pluto here with Mercury in Capricorn, it can help you break down some walls, just even in your own perceptions and thinking. And that can also be applied to the Pluto-Venus, breaking down some resistances and walls to your whole understanding and perception of love and relationships, how you've been conditioned to respond connect, share, and not share. There's a lot of different things to consider because it's a morning star, a Capricorn morning star. This cycle, which is what Venus retrograde is, it's a morning star. Because the morning star has that process of acting emotionally, sort of acting and responding to things. It creates change. It can create a bit of turmoil and conflict, and it can bring up stuff that's not necessarily very comfortable, because people are not necessarily very comfortable with other people's reactions and responses and emotions, but that's what the Venus morning star is going to do. She's going to bring up a lot of that stuff, and she's not uncomfortable about it. She's quite fine with it. And with Pluto there, she's definitely fine with it. So they're just some further reflections to consider around the Venus retrograde period. Okay, so just finally, just to finish up with a couple of comments about Mercury Pluto and Mercury Venus Pluto. So some of the concepts are Mercury Pluto is a passionate and probing mind, deep insight into emotional causes and motivations, an interest in criminology or depth psychology, a gift for persuasive communication, mental struggles and obsessions, fear of one's dark or shadow thoughts, harmful and destructive communication, aggressive dogmas and beliefs, crude speech. That doesn't really sound very light, does it? Because it's not. But it depends who you are. It depends on your own chart. Where is this transit occurring? It depends on the nature of your own natal Mercury. It depends on what this triggers, etc., etc. I mean, this is just a description of somebody who might have a Mercury Pluto aspect in their natal chart, for instance, but we can apply this to the transit as well, because there's the sort of themes that it can actually activate and trigger, right? And see that comment where he says a gift for persuasive communication. I really like that line, because when you throw Venus in there, magnify that and magnify it with charm, right? Venus is the charmer. So someone who's really charming and pleasant, right? And has a real sort of way with words and gifted with words, that's Venus, right? I know somebody very close to me who's got a Mercury Jupiter conjunction in Libra, and this individual is I wouldn't even know how to describe him in a few words, but anyway, he's studied law and criminal law, and he's got several degrees and masters and whatnot, and he's not a geek. He's a very Uranian type of individual, not part of consensus reality at all. The point, though, is that because Libra is ruled by Venus, and that's where his Mercury is and Jupiter is, can you imagine the sort of extent of mental expansion, the ability to expand Jupiter, to see the wider sort of vision and scope of any word, teaching, conversation, idea, perception, belief, thought, whatever it may be, laws, rules, etc., etc. And then in Venus, the ultimate gift, right, of certainly being able to see both sides to any situation, and the gift of being able to be completely objective and diplomatic, right? So that's, and so Mercury Venus, think about that, and Mercury Venus Pluto, a persuasive communicator, right? Someone who can really have their way with you with their words, because Venus is there. Venus is the attraction principle. She attracts and draws in, right? Mercury is the communicator. Pluto is a reflection of our soul, the deepest component of who we are. but it is also that very intense, persuasive. Um, it's like the person who can be an enigma, who's you are just totally mystified about. They hold deep sort of mysteries themselves about who they are. There's people who love all the mysteries and secrets and esoteric and occult things. It's that's very much a Pluto uh, drive or motivation that's drawn to those kinds of aspects of life. So it's not necessarily that with if it was just a couple of days, Mercury, Pluto, that would just be a few days that could characterize or depict some of these themes. But like I said, Mercury passes over Pluto 3 times. So this is an enormous opportunity and invitation to probe extremely deeply with any content you wish to. So it's great for study and learning, of course. Some further things this person says is a passionate and probing mind, a potent blending of willpower and intellect, a relentless and profound curiosity. Relentless and profound curiosity. So true. Curiosity, of course, is Mercury. Relentless and profound is Pluto, right? So Mercury, Pluto make the most amazing investigators, the most amazing investigative in all spectrums, because investigation can take place in so many different streams. But it is that brilliant mind that just penetrates to the absolute core and essence and depth of anything it chooses to focus on. It's a brilliant aspect, but the downside to it can be being taken over by obsessive thinking, bringing up dark shadow thoughts, perceptions, ideas, and being obsessed about this, thought you've had about a person, and just kind of, that just really taking over, as it were, and that can be a mental health issue. It can, sort of result to that as well, right? So everything, every archetype, every combination, every aspect, pattern, themes, planets, signs, etc. Everything has, well, first of all, it has a multitude of possibilities of how it can manifest. And it also has its shadow, very specific shadow side as well. He further then says a gift for deep analysis and questioning, penetrating insight. I love that, penetrating insight, Mercury, Pluto. Just the insight that you can experience, embody, understand during a Mercury, Pluto retrograde cycle, can be really just life-changing, really. It can be, It depends what you discover, though. Depends on the insight and how ready you are to integrate that insight and understand it as well. So it's not always clear cut. Nothing ever is, because nothing works in isolation, right? Penetrating insight into emotional causes and motivations, an ability to recognize the deeper significance in small details, urges to get to the bottom of problems, the probing instincts of a sleuth or detective, an interest in depth psychology. We kind of went over that before. Intense and powerful criticism. That's what I witnessed the other day between the mother and her adult offspring. It was intense, powerful criticism. It was just not pleasant at all. The destructive effect of truth, the breakdown of old philosophical models or certainties, a transformed point of view, exploded beliefs, the need for change, bulldozed, erode down the center of my mind. He says, the need for change bulldozed a road down the center of my mind. Maya Angelou said that actually. That's really interesting. What a really interesting way to put it. The need for change bulldozed a road down the center of my mind. I love that. That's so Mercury Pluto. My goodness. That's brilliant. There's a few sections in this where, like, shadow qualities, the arts, archetypes and spirituality, dream images and themes. And it would just take some time to read that. I'm not going to do that now, but if you're wondering where I'm reading from this book. Brilliant book. Totally recommend it. And just a comment here about Pluto, Mercury, Venus, right? So think about Mercury, Pluto combined with Venus. This is what this individual says: a graceful and persuasive way of speaking, a love of deep and profound ideas, an appreciation of mystery, detective or underworld themes in the arts, penetrating insight into relationship issues, a habit of obsessive friendliness to avoid darker issues. A habit of obsessive friendliness to avoid darker issues. That's really interesting. Trivial banter with a loaded undercurrent urges to use beauty or intelligence to manipulate others. Yep, seen that the last few days as well. Very, very interesting. Very, very interesting. So I'll leave that there and let you guys contemplate, those ideas and have a look at your own chart with regards to the Mercury Pluto transit, where it's going to take place, because it, again, just to repeat, it'll happen 3 times over Pluto. So it's a couple of month period. So where Mercury might just spend, a couple of weeks transiting through one of the houses in your chart, in this case, it's going to be there for virtually a couple of months. So that area of your chart is being activated by the Mercury, Pluto, Venus, Pluto retrograde energies and everything that could contain. And I've just given some suggestions today of what to perhaps consider and think about. There's millions more things I could say about it, but obviously I just wanted to give a bit of a general overview. So I'll see you guys very soon with more. There's just one other thing I wanted to mention as well. The Saturn-Uranus square, which the final square to that occurred just a few days ago. If you look at the degrees of those two planets and the distance between them in 2022, it is very interesting that they don't actually move very far away from each other. So whilst the exactness of the aspects have completed their journey, which was 3 times in 2021, the fact of the matter is that Saturn and Uranus are still going to be within range of being in that square aspect virtually all of 2022. And so expect more pushback, protests, revolutions, systems crashing, people not wanting to conform to a system that keeps them enslaved. The themes that we've been seeing throughout 2021 are most certainly going to be present in 2022, because that energy of Saturn Uranus is not moving off for 2022. So that was just something else that I was kind of considering as well, just in terms of the outlook of 2022. But there are a lot of other transits that are going to unfold, and they too would need to be considered in the equation of what to consider for 2022, right? And of course, the most beautiful one is the Jupiter in Pisces, which I did put a post in the community section and on other social media platforms, that Jupiter in Pisces is, well, it's interesting because over 2021 and 2022, Jupiter covers 3 signs, and one of those signs is Pisces. And so even though it entered Pisces early of 2021, it will not actually finish its journey in Pisces until the end of 2022 because of its retrograde movements. And it even goes as far as going into Aries later this year, and then goes back into Pisces again, later in the year, right? So the most amazing thing, of course, is the triple, it's actually a quadruple conjunction with Mars, Venus, Jupiter, and Neptune all lining up in Pisces. Now, the last time Jupiter, Venus, and Pisces, Jupiter, Neptune, and Venus in Pisces lined up was about 160 years ago. Mars was not there, though. Mars was not there in Pisces. So there's a different flavor coming up here with Mars. You know, Mars is always a little bit concerning when there's crisis and cataclysmic events going on in the world, because Mars corresponds to war. And we can't ignore that factor, right? And so I don't think Mars in Pisces is so much going to be about war as such, but you know, Mars has that edge to it. So it's just going to be very interesting to observe and monitor what that Mars is going to bring up. But on a very personal level, it's obviously going to bring up the whole yin yang, masculine, feminine, Venus, Mars. Well, I'll come back and talk about that anyway, but that's one of the most beautiful energies that I'm looking forward to in the month of April, which is also my birthday and my Venus return time. So yeah, that's pretty exciting. Okay, I'll see you guys very soon. Much love, and again, Happy New Year for the last day of 2021, which is what, tomorrow, isn't it? Okay, see you soon. Bye.